In 1984, a 19-year-old pre-med student was supposed to become a doctor. His parents were an orthodontist and a stockbroker. They had sent him to the University of Texas at Austin. They had a plan for him. A safe, respectable plan. He was going to study medicine, get his degree, and build a stable life. Instead, he was riding an elevator up to the 27th floor of his dormitory with computer parts stuffed under his bed, making $80,000 a month in his spare bedroom and hiding it all every time his parents came to visit. By the time he was 27, he was running one of the Fortune 500's youngest companies in history. By the time he was 34, his company was the #1 PC manufacturer on the planet. All of it started with one question that nobody in the computer industry had thought to ask. What if you just cut out the middleman? If you're new here, we tell stories like this every week. The real people behind the companies that changed the world. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Michael Dell grew up in Houston, Texas in the 1970s. His father fixed teeth. His mother traded stocks. It was a comfortable middle-class household where ambition was expected, and medicine was the highest form of it. Michael had other ideas. At 8 years old, he sent off for information about taking his high school equivalency exam early. He wanted to skip 12 years of school and get straight to business. His parents said no. They kept saying no for the next decade. At 12, he started a stamp trading business by mail, made $2,000, spent it on a new Apple II computer. Then did what every curious kid does when they get something expensive and new. He took it apart. Not to break it, to understand it, to see how something that cost hundreds of dollars was actually built, and what it was actually worth. That question, the gap between what things cost to make and what people were being charged for them, would define the next 40 years of his life. At 16, he got a summer job selling newspaper subscriptions for the Houston Post. Most kids made cold calls, got rejected all day, quit. Michael did something different. He figured out who was most likely to subscribe. Newlyweds, people who had just bought a home, people starting a new chapter, and got lists of them from public records. Then he sent personalized letters. Then he followed up. In one summer, he made $18,000, more than his teachers were earning in a full year. He spent it on a BMW. He wasn't old enough to drive it yet. In 1983, Michael Dell arrived at the University of Texas. Pre-med, as promised. Biology and organic chemistry as directed. He lasted about 3 weeks before he started upgrading computers in his dorm room. Here's what he'd noticed, and what nobody else seemed to be paying attention to. IBM, the most powerful technology company on Earth at the time, was selling personal computers for around $3,000. Inside those computers was about $600 worth of parts. IBM assembled them, sold them to a dealer for $2,000. The dealer, who knew almost nothing about computers, sold them to you for $3,000. Nobody was adding value at any stage after the factory floor. The dealer was just there, marking up the price because that's how retail worked. Michael Dell was 18. He thought this was insane. He started buying unsold IBM PCs from retailers at cost, adding memory and upgraded hard drives, and selling them directly to buyers for 10 to 15% below retail. No shop, no middleman, just here's what you want, built the way you want it, for less than anywhere else. People rode the elevator up to room 2713, handed over their computers, watched him add parts for 20 minutes, and left. His roommates hated it. The room was buried under computer components. They eventually barricaded his side of the door with piles of his own inventory. He didn't care. By the end of his first semester, he was making $25,000 a month. His parents found out in November when they made a surprise visit to campus. Dell had just enough warning to move the inventory into a friend's room. He shuffled his parents around the dormitory, showed them the books he wasn't reading, had a perfectly normal family visit, then moved everything back. But here's where things get interesting. The business was growing faster than he could hide it. By early 1984, he'd registered a company, PCs Limited, and moved out of the dorm into a 2-bedroom condo he was using as a warehouse. He was selling between $50,000 and $80,000 worth of computers a month. As a college freshman, his parents gave him an ultimatum: focus on medicine or explain himself. He made them a deal, let him spend the summer working on the business. If it didn't work out, he'd go back to school. That summer, PCs Limited made $6 million in revenue. He never went back. In May 1984, Michael Dell incorporated Dell Computer Corporation with $1,000 of his own money. Manufacturing consisted of, and this is a direct quote, 3 guys with screwdrivers sitting at 6-foot tables. The idea was brutally simple. You don't need a store, you don't need a showroom. You don't need a salesperson who doesn't know anything about the product. You call a toll-free number, tell them exactly what you want, they build it, they ship it to you. Faster, cheaper. Exactly to your specifications. In 1984, this was genuinely radical. Every other computer company was fighting for shelf space. At retailers, Dell wasn't competing for shelf space. He'd decided shelves were the problem. By 1985, the company had 30 employees and launched its first original model, the Turbo PC, sold for $795, marketed in national computer magazines, built to order. That year, they made $73 million. In 1988, Dell went public. The IPO was $8.50 a share. In 1992, 8 years after 3 guys with screwdrivers in a rented room, Dell Computer Corporation appeared on the Fortune 500 list. Michael Dell was 27 years old, the youngest CEO of a Fortune 500 company in history. And then came the internet. In 1994, Dell launched Dell.com. In 1996, it started selling computers online. In the first 6 months, the website made $1 million a day. By 2000, it was making $40 million a day online. Think about that. The same model, skip the middleman, sell directly, that worked in a dorm room in 1984, worked even better on the internet in 2000, because the internet made it infinitely scalable. Dell hadn't just built a computer company, he'd built a business model that fit the future perfectly. And he'd built it before the future existed. By 2001, Dell was the #1 computer systems provider in the world, not the #1 American provider. The #1 in the world, the company that IBM dominated, that Compaq built, that Hewlett-Packard and Gateway and a dozen others fought over. Dell won it. A kid from Houston who took apart his Apple II when he was 12, who made $18,000 selling newspapers when he was 16, who hid computer parts under his bed from his parents at 18. There's a detail from Michael Dell's freshman year that's worth sitting with. When his parents showed up unannounced that November, he scrambled to hide the evidence. The computers, the parts, the whole operation moved to a friend's room for the afternoon. He played the good son, showed them around, smiled. He was already making more money than most of his professors. The thing about that story is it could have gone the other way. The parents could have been more insistent. The visit could have lasted longer. The business could have been too far along to ignore. He could have been talked out of it, the way most people get talked out of things. Not by a single dramatic conversation, but by the slow erosion of being told, month after month, that the responsible thing is to stay on the path someone else chose for you. He went back to school for 3 more weeks. Then, he couldn't do it anymore. 40 years later, Dell Technologies is worth over $90 billion. The medical degree that was supposed to be his future is a footnote nobody mentions. The boy who took a computer apart to see what it was really worth ended up taking an entire industry apart and rebuilding it around one idea: that the people buying something deserve a direct line to the people making it. He figured that out on the 27th floor of a dormitory with a screwdriver and $1,000. At 19 years old, if this story got you, there are more like it on this channel. Founders who started with nothing and rewired entire industries. Check the playlist, and if you learned something new today, hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps other people find these stories. We'll see you in the next one.